Hi guys, it's me Lewis, and today I'm here to do a little, somewhat of a thoughts and opinion slash rant video on Gen Z using retro tech or anything retro for the first time in their lives. So, where do I start off with this? Well, of course, over the last couple of years, we've seen, obviously, big tech corporations, and mainly just corporations entirely, basically, well, screwing over so many opportunities for Gen Z to basically enjoy life to the fullest. And of course we've seen this with government officials who are now trying to go out of their way to turn everything all digital and control everything that you basically, quote, have at your disposal by basically putting out the whole phrase of "you will own nothing and be happy" phase, and that's precisely what they're trying to do. But recently, there's been a weird shift going on with Gen Z. Now, of course, I've already mentioned the fact that multiple nations are fighting back against their corrupt government, especially mine in particular. And of course, we've been seeing obviously the mass protests that have been going on. But Gen Z has kind of started to make a somewhat of a U-turn, not fully, but they're slowly doing that full U-turn as time goes on. And a lot of them, especially those that I've spoken to over the last couple of days, have been experiencing using analog technology or retro tech, as I like to call it. So now you're thinking, okay, what are you talking about, Lewis? Why is Gen Z going out of their way to use retro tech? Well, it's very simple. Because if you look at the stats of Gen Z today, especially during the last 3 or 4 years after COVID, they have been possibly the most miserable generation I have ever seen in my life. And I mean, way more miserable than Gen Alpha, mind you. But then again, Gen Alpha is just a bunch of fucking Coco Melon zombies at the moment, but I digress. And all of a sudden, a large group of these Gen Zers have been starting to listen to Gen Xers like myself, where we've had it good during our timeline, which I'll get to in a minute, and considering the fact that all forms of entertainment, all forms of trends and everything else has just been destroyed one after the other by big tech corpos and corrupt governments who just want to basically take all of it for themselves. And finally, Gen Z is taking a fucking stand on this, and they're saying, no, fuck this shit. We want no fucking part of this. And recently, they have been looking back at certain timelines from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and all the way to the 2000s. They've been looking back at what made those eras fantastic, right? They've been looking back at what made them unique, and they've said, and they've been saying to themselves, "Wow, holy shit! My dad and his dad before him and his dad before him had it way better than I did. What the fuck?" And now they're finally experiencing for the first time using retro tech or any source of retro or any source like retro entertainment or medium for that matter, right? And when I watched that one video of a Gen Zer who never even touched a PS2 in his life. Again, PS2 is one of the greatest fucking consoles ever made, by the way. When he first experienced playing a PS2 for the first time in his life, he was absolutely dumbfounded at the fact that you didn't need fucking Wi-Fi. No microtransactions were required. No DLC was required to play the full game. Otherwise you'll be restricted from actually playing the damn thing in the first place. They were absolutely blown away of how fantastic that experience was. And I'm glad. I'm glad that he's gone through that phase. I'm glad that he's actually looking at that and going, wow. It's just fantastic. I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit stunned right now for words on just how how much of a source of hope that Gen Z might actually have for the future. And above on that, they actually started doing side by side comparisons with retro and modern tech / software, right? So let's do a side by side comparison here, right? So let's say let's say let's say if Gen Z is using Windows XP or Windows 7, possibly the two most popular OSs in PC history, right? And for obvious reasons, right? They've actually experienced that where it's simple, it's clean, it's understandable to use, it doesn't burn up too much RAM, all that type of shit. And they go back and try out Windows 11 with its recent shitty updates, which by the way, which a little bit of a mini rant here with Windows 11. That one update almost fucked up my video editing software. By the way, which my message to Microsoft is, go fuck yourselves, you pieces of shit. Anyway, when they did a side by side comparison with the two former old OSs, and of course Windows 11, they realized that maybe the older versions were the better versions. And they finally began to realize that. They began to realize that all this shit going digital isn't fucking worth it. Maybe going physical is actually worth it as well. Because another example I can give on that is them using cassette tapes, which, yeah, shockingly, they're going back to the days when their parents had those analog cassette tapes with the fucking headphones plugged in, right? And they would like put the little device slotted onto their pocket, and they would go out for a jog or have a little walk while listening to good old classics 80s pop music, right? That's precisely what's been going on here. And above all that, they've been going out, and above all that, they've been also doing this whole phase of trying to live the days on when their parents used to be fucking happy, because in current day, everything is so dystopian, so miserable. Barely anyone owns anything anymore. Hell, you don't even own your own fucking phones anymore. You really don't, because the corporate heads own that shit now. It's genuinely fucking sad, because when it comes to like the offline devices, corporations don't own that. You do. You own that shit. And that's what fucking scares them, because they can't control what you can and cannot do with it. And that's what instantly frightens them beyond belief. And it's so wonderful to see that Gen Zers are looking back at all these things, especially comics, to be exact as well. When you look at like comics from the 90s, right? The 90s was in my opinion considered to be the golden age of entertainment. Sure, the 2000s had it great as well, but the 90s, man, the 90s was where it was at. You had all sorts. You had your Sega Mega Drives, your Super Nintendos. You had obviously classic cartoons like the 1994 Spider-Man cartoon, to be exact. The Tick, even the Power Rangers as well. Hell, you even had classic 90s jazzy piano house music, which I'm gonna be honest with you, I have a very nostalgic thing for that, because obviously as someone who lives in the UK. That has always been a popular genre in this country, which to those who live outside of that is. But at the same time, though, they have no doubts. They have no doubt seen anything like it before in their lives, and this does give me some form of hope for Gen Z, because will they actually go out? Will they actually try and fight back? The digital era that we're slowly slithering towards right now. Yes. Will they actually manage to basically destroy it entirely? No. But what they can do is push it back as much as they possibly can. And seeing how today, when you see Gen Z like walking around of the surroundings that they have, right? Especially during the areas that they live in, and they start doing side by side comparisons of walking down a high street, right? For example, and they see a high street filled with bunch of empty retail stores that have been closed down for God knows how many years. And overall, just not seeing anyone walking down the street at all because they're either on their phones or they're just too depressed to do anything or anything along those lines. They do another they've also done another side by side comparison with that as well. They've looked back at old footage of people from the 90s, the 2000s, hell, even the 80s to be exact, where everything felt alive, everything felt joyful and great, and they're looking at that and they're saying to themselves, holy shit, we, like, us humans, we need to go back to this type of society because social media has become corrupt. Owning any modern tech is either filled with restrictions or just full blown legalized spyware by government officials. And once you have all that retro tech, even pirated versions of modern day applications, the government nor big tech corpos can't do anything about it. And the sad reality is, though, these monopolies need to implode. They need to, because it's like a sick dog per se, right? You're watching it suffer so much to the point where you're like, yeah, it's got to be euthanized. It has to be. It has to be euthanized to put it out of its misery. And the only thing that's stopping it is that one stubborn old bastard in your family that believes, oh no, it's fine, don't worry, it's all fine and dandy. No, it's not. No, it's fucking not. People nowadays are struggling to find any source of entertainment. Hell, people are struggling to even find jobs or even make some form of cash, which I'm not really going to get, which of course that's a video for another time. But the point is, excuse me, the point is that when you look at today's era, being of course the digital era, and you look back at the retro stage, which I've been going back to, by the way, it shows maybe the past was a lot more enjoyable. Maybe it was a lot more better. It wasn't pitch perfect, but it was a lot better. And people like myself have been going offline, especially during video games, because recently I've been buying so many retro plug-and-play systems. Hell, I've been pirating the absolute fuck out of so many fucking games over the years and putting them through emulation on my fucking plug-and-play consoles to try and relive the good old days of what gaming used to be. And I do hope Gen Z follows that footsteps as well. Not footsteps, but paths. I do hope they do follow that path in the future. And the only thing that we can pray for is if one day, Gen Z will actually give us the bastion of hope that will prevent us from falling into this full-blown digital phase dystopian nightmare that will be the extinction of us humans. Alright guys, that's all I have time for, so don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and tell me what are your thoughts on Gen Z, using retro tech or using analog tech to be exact. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think this could actually, bring some form of hope for us in the future? Do let me know in the comments below. Okay guys, peace out.